Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bootcamp. In today's session, we will continue with the Jamstack practical sessions we've been doing, the projects we've been building. So today we'll be working on the third project with Zeeshan. Um, Zeeshan will go into the details of it in a minute. If you guys have any other things to do before that, we can use this
Yes,
time, or if
I,
we can, yeah.
yes. I just wanted to add that today we are going to try to finish our Jamstack serverless full stack development, and from next class we will start going into detail about e-commerce and which we don't know much about. So therefore, we'll have to study very hard, all the teaching team, and but it is beneficial for all of us because after COVID-19 issues, uh, the focus on e-commerce has increased tremendously. What before we had to start e-commerce, we had to finish full stack development. So just to give you a brief description of where we are going, up to now we started off with React and did client side development. Then we started a little introduction of serverless with Netlify, and we did Jamstack development with the Gatsby and Netlify functions and for DB. Then we'll start e-commerce after finishing this today, hopefully. And in e-commerce, we will start off by payments, focusing on payments, then different APIs. After we have completed e-commerce, we are going to, because our whole focus is in the long run, me, Daniyal, Zeeshan, and Adil are going to develop APIs for different companies, which we are basically going to be providing a software as a service. So we will start learning APIs after covering e-commerce. The good thing about this is that it will allow our students to start making very good money in the international market with the Jamstack as well as Mernstack, with the GraphQL and with e-commerce. But our main focus is towards end of this course is start developing APIs, serverless APIs. I believe that that is going to the future of cloud computing, and it will be very difficult to beat this model. So therefore, we will be learning how to develop after we have finished off e-commerce, how to develop APIs as a software as a service model with serverless APIs, so that they are unlimited, scalable, and in different areas. And the rest of our careers, most probably, all four of us, we will be building that throughout life. We will also be using, for example, serverless AI APIs to enhance our. But it is a whole ball game. We'll continue these classes, but with e-commerce, our main services section will be completed, where our students will be able to provide services to international companies. After that, for product development, of course, which is also applicable to services as well. But our own focus is that, and soon Adil will be leaving Pakistan, and after that, maybe Daniyal and Zeeshan and others will also be leaving Pakistan for extended, not extended period, but short periods, so that we can talk to our customers and develop businesses. We have already, all four of us are already working internationally with international clients. But right now, this new focus is going to bear fruit in the next 2 3 years, because serverless market is quite new. It has captured about 40% of the market, and 96% of that market is Zeeshan held by AWS. In serverless, AWS is much ahead than any other company. So then we are going to start off with the API development. We are going to focus on AWS initially, but our focus is on multi-cloud software as a service API serverless development. But multi-cloud will come later, because right now 96% of the market, serverless market, has been captured by AWS. And somebody asked CTO of AWS that if he had to rebuild everything from scratch, what will he do? Daniyal, he replied that he will make everything serverless. And he and I am also believe that it's such a powerful model that it is very difficult and easy for developers, very difficult for the. But there are many questions. What will happen to DevOps people? What will happen to other support personnel? Because in the serverless environment, most of the work is being done by developers. Let's see how it goes. But that will be later on. So Zeeshan, you can get started with the project.
Sure. Let me share my screen first. Okay, can you see?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for the third project, which we need to cover today, which is related to the creating a virtual lolly. As you guys, if you guys remember, there were services like e-cards when you want to send a card on Eid or any occasion. So you can create a virtual card and you can send to your friends. So that's a similar concept of creating a virtual lollipop, so you can share with your friends. So it has has provided related to the article related to this, which explains what this project is and what it needs to be done. Is it something at my end? Okay. So this article explains what the architecture of the project and what it includes. This is the repository, and that's the virtual implemented project, which the developer or the person who developed this project deployed. So let me show you first what we need to do, what this project does, and then we will start implementing it. And the problem is this project, the developer worked with as other framework named 11th. So it's quite difficult for if you want to grab everything from that project. So it will not be easy. So we need to develop everything from scratch. Okay, so the project, as you can see, this is the interface, which initially shows few lollies as a sample. Then you can click make lollies, and what you can do is you can change the color, and that's it. So you have changed the color, then you provided name, let's say and you press the submit button. It will create a virtual lolly and it will give you the URL. The interesting part of this project is that it generates the static pages for the content, but as it is created, this content has been created just now. So if you try to access this URL, it will redirect you to the netlify function. So what it says is that it will use pre-rendered pages, but if data is not available, pre-rendered pages are not available, as a fallback it will go to the serverless and fetch data from over there. So that's the important concept over here. So you can see now you can share this URL with anyone and it fetch the data. It will display you data has been stored in FaunaDB. So that's what we need to develop. For that, another interesting point which we need to understand is the graphic, this virtual lolly. You need to understand first that that's something which is built with SVG. SVG is scalable vector graphics, so that you can animate your increase your size. Your graphics will be scalable. It does not pixelate, or you do not have any problem with the pixel problem with your graphic or your image. So for that, SVG is being used, and you can create SVG elements or SVG images with Adobe Illustrator. So this project has already created this lolly with the SVG. So I'll use that SVG, but before that, you need to understand this SVG. Let me show this SVG inside, because we need to manipulate its color and we need to understand. So you need to understand what this lolly contains. So that's virtual lolly SVG. It has SVG tag. If you guys see this,
I think you can have to increase the focus a little bit more.
is it fine?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so that's the SVG tag. Inside there's a definition. There are many other things. What we need to remember is the class, which is on the main tag, which named lollipop, and there are three element: lolly bottom, top, and middle. These are the colors which is being used to display the color, and all these things are being done with the as you can see, there's a stick into it. So if I try to show you that, let's say lolly bottom, if I change the color from here, it changed. So the color is being changed inside the SVG. So we need to understand that green, and that's the middle. So these are the three colors, and then we have this stick part. So that's how this SVG is being built. So instead of creating this SVG by ourselves, we will use this SVG directly from this project. Otherwise, that will be a hassle for us to create from the scratch. So what I'll do is I'll copy this SVG file and add into my project. What I'll do is in SRC, I'll create a folder name SVG. Now in this, okay, so we have this SVG file here. Now we have another problem. As you can see in this example, this SVG is part of this HTML. So to make SVG part of your HTML, let's say, let me first start the project. Okay, I need to mention one more thing, that I had just created a dummy project. It has nothing, a simple Gatsby Hello World starter project. So there is nothing inside this project, and I have created a repository Gatsby virtually, and I'll push the code directly into it. So there is nothing we have done these creation of repository and initial code. So I just created that beforehand. Okay, so inside this folder, I'll call netlify dev. Okay, so we have project running. Now the option we have is what we can do, like we have done with React, if we want to use images. So I'll name it this, and then I can use it inside. So here you can see we have image over here. We can give this time. Let's forget it. But what I need to show you is that image is a base 64. We cannot customize it. We do not have access to images, the tags of this SVG element. So for that, we can use another plugin provided by the Gatsby name Gatsby React SVG. This plugins help. What this plugin will do is it will make your SVG part of your component, so you can see tags exactly like this example, that SVG elements are part of it. But I face this again the problem, because we need to customize elements and properties inside that component. What this component does is this plugin provides you the component. It will make your SVG a component, and then you can use that component, but you need to access element inside that component to manipulate. So for that you need to manipulate DOM. So that's another problem. So the final solution we have is we need to make it our own component. So what I'll do is I'll create this as my own component, so that it does not have the problem, and then we can customize that. Okay, now pick the SVG from here and paste it over here. Once you paste it over here, you will face few problems again. So first of all, we need to remove this, and all those elements which has this column, because it is not acceptable inside the React. And there is another problem with this. If I'll save it, it will start showing you the errors. I have not used it, so that's why. So once we create this, so this fill rule. In React, you cannot use property with the hyphen. So what you need to do is we need to change this property. So for all such properties, I need to change it in a camel case, fill rule, and there is another fill opacity. So all the occurrence of fill opacity should be replaced. Okay. Now what we can do is component slash, instead of using this image. There are still few errors which I'll fix by identification provided by this. Okay, so there is still ledger of line number 18. Okay, so now we have '27. Class. So as we know that okay, so now we have this component or ours, and now we can customize it based on our requirements. So what we need to customize is we need to customize these three properties, so that whenever user change these properties, so let's say I'll ask these properties from user on the top, bottom, and middle. So this component will ask property, and what we will do is we will replace that's a top. So we will replace the top fill here. We'll replace the middle fill here. This is the reason I need to create it as my own component, as we need to use these attributes inside the component of SVG. So now the problem is, as we have not provided any kind of attribute from outside, so what happened is this lolly has no color. Now I can I'll use the color which has been provided initially from outside. So for the bottom, now, then for the middle. Okay. Now what we can do is, let me create another element, and I can say as my own color. So we have created two lollies. So now we can customize it however we want it based on our requirement. So let's move to the another. Now let's move to the how we need to display the pages. So that's how our first page is, just an example. So what I'll do is, first let me create the CSS file, because there are few CSS. I'll not use all the CSS used in that project, but we need few, so I'll use it. Okay, we need Gatsby browser, and then And inside the main CSS, let me initially try to see if it's working. Okay, we have added the browser file, so we need to restart the server, Netlify dev. Okay, so our CSS is also working now. Just remove this div, and what we need is inside our page we have this header which will work on all pages, then few lollies, and then a button. So what I'll do is I'll create a component, header component. And inside this component, what I'll do is I'll okay, so that's our header component, and what I'll do is I'll use that header component inside my div. Instead of hello world, I'll provide header here. Now, so that's, you can see that's virtual lollipop. We have the text over here. Now we need to display these lollies in a parallel in a horizontal style. So for that, what we can do is let me create a div over here, and we'll say class name inside it. And for this class, what I'll do is, that's a div we have, so we need to create a flex box so that it displays in horizontal style. So for that, what I'll do is display flex direction draw, justify content center, so all the element stays in center. You will understand it in a bit more. Now you can see we have these lollies as a central item, and we can create two items. Now what I can do is I just need to reduce the size of the, so that's again, we have created this component, so we have access to this lollipop class. Now what I can do is height, let's say 300 pixels. Now you can see, and that's a few things that with CSS you can manage in a bit better style. container margin and then I'll use this container CSS on so now you can see everything is inside center, and then you can add all these CSS additionally, but I'll just have to show you that how you can customize and how you can use these CSS. So now I'll just move to another page by creating a link. So let's create a button inside our div here. Button on click we need to navigate. For that, as we have seen previously, we have an navigate from Gatsby. We have navigate function from Gatsby, which helps you navigate your application, and will navigate to create new. So that this page does not exist at this moment. So I'll create this page. And initially I'll keep it empty, simple. So now we have a button, and once I'll click on it, we are on new page. On this page, we need to implement this form, which will display the lolly, so you can change the color and the form so that you can input the data and then it will submit over the web. Okay, so for that, well, what we need to do is initially we should keep this container and all these things as same. So just to explain, what I did is I created a container with the size of 800 pixels so that all our components stay in the center of a page. As you can see, so it's 800 pixels page. It will stay in the center. Why? Because I have applied CSS saying margin auto, and then I made body to text line center. So everything is coming to the center, and at the both side it will display the equal margin, and all our UI will be in center. Okay, so that's container I need to use, need to keep inside on all pages. That says create new loading. Okay, so now on this page, header is not defined. Yeah. Okay, so for now we have the same over here, and now what we need is we need a div, and inside that div we need to keep three things. One is a lolly, another is input for color picker, and the form. So we need 3 elements, or you can say 3 components, which appears horizontally. So for that, I'll create 3 div. We will show Raleigh over here. We'll show input over here, and we will show form over here. At this moment, again, it's in a vertical, so I'll again have to use form dev, and then I have to go to CSS, and I need to apply the display flex direction. So whenever you say flex direction row, that means element should display horizontally. When you say flex direction column, so element will display vertically, add vertically. Justify content center, line item center, so it keeps all the element inside the component centralized. Okay, so now you can see we have all 3 elements as a horizontal element. Now I'll start adding the component. Okay, I have a lolly over here. It does not have anything. So at this moment, I'll copy the properties from here. So we have lolly now, and we need it as a 300 pixel. So this lollipop is a class on SVC. On main page, this CSV inside this class. So what we can do is we can apply those CSS so that we don't have to create 2 CSS, and we can use it this way. It will reduce the size. So there's one CSS and there's another CSS, and this 300 pixel apply on home page as well as on this page. Okay, now I need to create input boxes. So here we need input boxes. Type color. Let me show you just one. So you can see we have this input box, color box, and we can select it as we want. So we need 3 of them. But let's first apply name. Okay, so what we need is we need 3 input box, one for the top, another for the middle, and another one for the bottom. So I'll name it pivot top, and as we need to apply some CSS over it as well, so class name and initial value, so that value, let me use it start so that you can see easily. Okay, so we have a value, and again I'll copy this value from here. That's for top, that's for the middle, and this one is for bottom. Now what we need is two things. We need them in a horizontal, what you say, vertical order first. Another is we need them as what you say, a circle. So again, these things requires bit of a CSS. Now we need them as a vertical, so we'll use the flex direction column. Didn't work. Okay, so we have them now, and that's a tricky part. You can say what we need to do is we need to apply for the radius, let's say 40 pixel. You can see now okay, so now we have this problem. So what we can do is we can put them inside the label. Okay, so flavor top, and then we'll apply color pickle. So we need to apply on all the input. Mm-hmm. So it's there are many CSS by which you can control it. At this moment, we I'm not focused. I have done already much of a CSS over here, so I'll move to other parts. Otherwise, we can apply many things over here, and then we can make it look like a good what you say. Mm, so for now, I'll keep it like this, and then I'll apply some more CSS. Otherwise, we'll be focusing too much on CSS at this moment. These are mandatory, so that's why I have applied at this point, and I'll change it so that it can be applied on. So it will clearly available as this one. So that's you can use. Okay, so now we have a third element, form. Here we need to create a div so that we can create these three input boxes and the button. So again, for that we need a label, HTML4, recipient name. Okay, name recipient. Message and from. For the message, we instead of input box, we need a text area because it's in a text area. Text area we can provide raw, let's say 15. Columns. Okay, so there are two text boxes inside two. Okay, yes. Now we have these elements and they are quite messy. So what we need to do is we need to they become vertical and justify content so they stay in center. I'm online, right? Was just checking that. Okay, so now we have these elements in our input. Altogether, now I need a div button. So inside this div, I need button as well.
It's self-closing
Oh,
input tag.
oh. Thank you. Okay, so we have create button here as well. Okay, now what we need to do is once user click on the color, it changed this color. Another, once user fill this form, so it pick all the values and on the create button, it submits to the server. Then we'll start working on the server. Okay, so for this, first of all, for the colors, I need to use the color one uses. I'll use the use state so that works like this. Color one, color two, color three. Now this color property will be used on the lolly over here. So instead of these properties being provided here, I'll use in the user state. We know how to use user state very well, so that's why I'm not explaining it in the detail. Okay, now color one, color two. Okay, so at this moment that's empty. Why should have color? Okay, let's focus over here. Now we need to apply whenever user change the color, change. Okay, so what we'll do is set color one e dot target dot value. Let's see if it's working. Yes, it's working. But why it's not being applied initially? It should be set color. Should be working initially as well. Yeah, because we are using value as a hard coded. So in the first input box, we need to use color from here. The second input box for the color, we need to use value from here, and for the third as well. So it is connected. So refresh the page. That's what we have, and I can now change. Oh, I have not applied the on change on other input box as well. So I'll apply the input, and instead of color one, I'll use color two. For the third one, okay. Now we have color. So as you can see, as we change the input color pop-up, it updates the value. I'll just fix this in a moment. Let me, if this works well, that's good. Margin. Okay, so that's how it's. Now it's looking. Okay, now you can see a complete circle. Just need to apply a few CSS. That's why it take time to. If you need to be quite good at the client side, you need to be quite good in the CSS as well. So now we have a complete round circle as a button. Okay, now we need to pick the two from values. So for that, I need the recipient name. I'll use the useref. The values from okay, so now we have this input box and I'll apply ref over here so that you can pick the values. Message ref and then sender ref. Okay. User ref is not available. Okay. Now what we just need to see if it works fine. So what I'll do is I'll create a function. Submit. At this moment, I'm just using two props to see if our data is working fine. And we have all these data over here or not. Okay, so this is done, and let me add one more property so that sender ref dot current dot value. So as we remember, you must be remember that for to access the ref, we have ref dot current dot value. Okay, so submit all form is not defined. Why? What's the problem? So we'll see if our data works fine. Oh, I have not called this function over here. So I have created this function, and this function needs to be called on the click of a button. As we need to do a lot more things inside this function, that's why I'm not using inline function. Otherwise, we can use as an inline function as well. But at this moment, because we need to call the contact to the server, so we need many many line of code over here. That's why I'm using it as a separate function. So what I'll do is on click, I'll call this function, I'll pass this function. So submit lolly form, I'll pass this function over here, and now if I'll submit over here, so yes, you can see 11 and 0. So we have a values, our form is ready, client is ready. Now what we need to move towards the server so that we can call the function and submit the data. So for that, what we need to do is we need to add the UML file so that we can identify netlify to UML inside the UML. Let's be built. Publish. These will be needed later at this moment, but at this moment we need a function. So we need a functions folder for functions, and I'll create a folder over there. Now inside this function, I need yes.
There's a spelling mistake in Gatsby build.
Gatsby, okay, thank you. BU. Okay. So now what I'll need to do is I need to create function. So for that, let me stop the server and call netlify functions, call create, and I'll say at this moment, lack of a better name. Okay. Do you mean to create?
It function, not functions. Spelling mistake.
Okay. Create function. No, it's a mistake in the create. Okay, so it asked me which function I need to use. So instead of using the plain function, I'll use the GraphQL function so that it will give me the basic structure of the Apollo Lambda server, and I need to improve based on that. So I'll use the Apollo function over here. And as Daniyal has mentioned in last class, that to deploy auto deployment, we need to move package.json from a functions folder to the main package.json. Netlify is still working on this solution so that you do not have to use single JSON file for functions and the Gatsby as well. So there is no final solution for at the Gatsby as well. If you deploy manually from terminal to your Netlify, then you do not have to worry about, and you do not have to worry about moving your package JSON and node module to global level. If you want automatic auto deployment CI/CD, that you push the code on your GitHub and it directly deploy on the Netlify, then what you need to do is you need to remove this node module and use this package.json file, all these dependencies from this package.json file over here. Then you will be able to use it directly and you do not have to worry about, and this auto build will work. So at this moment we have this structure, basic structure for the function, and I'm using the GraphQL. So what we need to do is we need to connect from client, we need to connect with the GraphQL, and then we'll go to the FaunaDB to save the into the database. So for that, instead of using author, I will use lolly. I don't have ID at this moment. Now we have second name. message. Sender name. Level top. Middle and then bottom. Okay. One more thing which you need to understand is once we submit this page, what we need is we need a URL or identification for if we have directly, yes. So we need this URL and we need some, so we can use ID as well, or we can generate a short ID so that we can use it. So that will be our path or our URL to access a particular lollipop. So for that, what we need to do is we need to use a path property, name it anything. I am naming it path. So in this path property, we'll keep such strings so that this can be accessed from any easily. Okay, now we don't need this author over here. We don't need much of a code over here. Just keep the hello so we can test. Okay. Now what we need to do, as we will be submitting data to the server, so we need mutations. So what I'll do is I'll create mutation. And it will accept properties which are these. So instead of typing, just copy paste CP programming. Okay. So I have created this mutation which is accepting 6 or 7 properties. Maybe path is not required because it will generate at this server. So let us skip that. And once it is saved into the database, we need to return lolly to the customer so that we can send, or we can send anything, but what I'll do is once it is being saved, I'll return that same object to the customer. So we have created this mutation. Now inside our, we don't need this, but we'll need mutation. So what I'll do is mutation. Here what I'll do is I'll use the create lolly, and we don't need this. And here in args, we are expecting from the client that we'll receive all these 6 properties inside this arg parameter. So we'll use this parameter to display. At this moment, we just don't need to do anything, and we'll just return an object. Okay. Now what we need to do is we have created this mutation, but we need to connect it to the database. So for that, what we need is we'll need to add the, so for that, what I'm FaunaDB. And to generate a path, we need a library called short-id. I'm installing both of them. Okay, we have this. Now what we need to do is we need to const and we need to use this client new FaunaDB client, and we need to pass secret over here. So we need a secret. So let's go to the FaunaDB database. Okay, so here I already have few databases, so I'll not be creating the new database, but what I'll do is demo new DB. I'll use this DB, and for this DB I'll generate a security key, admin role, and save. So I have this key, and I'll copy this key and paste it over here, so it will connect to the FaunaDB database. And then we can use from the environment variables. At this moment I'm not going to the environment variable, but I'm just using, but the best way is to use from the environment variable, environment process.environment. Okay,
Zeeshan, I think on line number 16 you have mentioned mutations. Do you change it to mutation?
line number 16 over here.
No. Yeah, this thing is.
Thank you. These GraphQL errors are so vague that once you fall into those errors, it's very difficult to find errors in GraphQL.
That's why I pointed out.
Thank you. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to submit data to the server. So that means we are assuming that we are receiving all this information from the args, and we need to create
I think there is another spelling mistake, which is secret. The secret is spelled wrongly.
SE.
SECRET.
Oh. Okay. Now, so create lolly, and we need path over here. I just removed it, but we definitely need to submit that path to. Okay. So now what we need to do is we need to const short ID, import short ID. It generates the random numbers like this. This is a short ID, so it will be easy to manage instead of creating your own. This library provide you help for this. Short ID will generate, and what you say, client, and then we'll pass create args dot lolly path, because we are not receiving path from the client. Client will send us only properties: top, middle, bottom, color, to, message, and from. That's what we will receive from the client. And then we need to add another property, lolly paths. So that's what we will do from here. Once we do this, we'll need to submit the data. So add to client.query, and inside that do queue.create. Okay, so now we don't have collection over here. So what I'll do is I'll go to the collection folder. I'll create a new collection, name lollies, and I need index on it as well. So what I'll do is I'll create index that will be on lollipop, so that index name, and the term on which field it will search. So for that I'll use lollipop property. So as you can see, we have 6 properties: recipient name, message, and another property lollipop. So we'll search our lollies from the path, so that whenever users send a request or put a direct URL into the browser, so it connect to the server, and then server find out based on the URL. So that's why we need it as this, and save it. So now we have a index named lollipop path, which will search by the lollipop, and we have a collection named lollies. And from here, what we will do is in create queue dot collection, and we'll pass the lollies inside it, comma. Now here what we need to pass is, to create an object into the FaunaDB, we need to provide a property data, and all the data will be inside the data property. So data colon this arg. So we are assuming that all the properties, only the properties client submit from the client will be in arg. So I'm not extracting and displaying it separately. So this arg property will have recipient name, message, sender name, flavor top, flavor bottom, and flavor middle. All these 6 properties, and the 7th lollipop, which we are providing on the server. Once it's done, the result will be, we can see the result over here, and what we need to do is this mutation returns the complete lolly object. But as we have seen in FaunaDB get or FaunaDB create, it returns an object. Inside the object there is a data property. So for that, what we can do is we can return result dot data. So I'll print over here as well, so that we know. Okay. So assumingly it's working fine until we call it somehow. So let's go to the client and try to access it from the client. So for that we need to create a folder named Apollo. As you remember that we need to create a client, and okay, so inside is our folder, and inside that we need 2 files, client.js and wrap-root element. So I just let me go to the, we have here, yes, I'll just copy because it's in a similar syntax and we don't need to remember it all the time. So I'll copy it from here, and wrap-root element. So that's constant syntax which we'll be using always to connect to the database, to connect to the GraphQL server. So we need to create Apollo client. We need to install Apollo client as well. So for that, install Apollo client, and that's Apollo client. This slash is very important because whenever you connect to the server, you need a relative path so that you do not need to, when you are working with the localhost, it should be localhost 888. When you're it's working on the Netlify, it should be the origin of Netlify. But if you use without this slash, so it will be a relative URL to a particular page. So let's say localhost colon 888 slash hello. So if you submit from this hello, so path will be this, but we need this path. So that's, if you do not provide slash, it will be this way. We need to avoid this, so that's why always use this slash, so that your GraphQL function call should always be like this. Okay. Then that's a similar, that's what you say, boilerplate syntax. You will always be using this in the same way. Now we need to use that inside our browser and as well as Gatsby SSR. I'll create gatsby-ssr.js and I'll export this what you call wrap root element. So you just provide that wrap root element, and it's as inside src Apollo and wrap root element folder. So I'm using the same structure, so we do not have to worry about the path. So we need to provide inside the browser and Gatsby browser and Gatsby SSR file. There's a wrap root element, and once we done with this, we can have access of our GraphQL function or GraphQL queries inside of this folder. So for now, what I'll do is I'll try to call this function, which is hello, so that we are sure, I'll be sure that it's working fine and we are connecting to the GraphQL server. So to verify this, what I'll do is I'll use the use query from Apollo client, and this query requires the
Spelling mistake in const.
oh, okay. So now we need to create a query so that we can call to our GraphQL server. So what I'll do is can use GQL from Apollo, or there is a Gatsby tag. So let's see if it's not working. Okay, now what we need to call this hello. This hello over here, and if we have this data, it will appear. So just to display so that it's working or not, we need to see. Data.hello. Okay, we have done much of a code. Let's start the server.
So just double check. Did you import GQL?
Um,
GQL from GraphQL tag? Yes. In the component.
I'm in the wrong folder. Just yes, imported from Apollo client. We can use GraphQL tag from GraphQL tag as well.
Okay. We can also import from
Okay,
Apollo
so
client.
assign but never used. Okay, we need to provide this query for here. Okay. So we have could not find client. Could not find client. Apollo provider. Okay. So apparently the code I have imported. Client export enrollment. It's here. Oh, it's not saved. Okay. So we have this over here. Let's see, we have recipient name. Okay, we have two input box with the same value, and bundle as warning. In create new loading. Okay, that's ignore it. It's going to the GraphQL hello function, which is we do not have. So again, that's always a remedy of what you say copy paste programming. So we have a function, we have a new lolly function instead of GraphQL. So what we need to do is we need to change new. Let me first fix this input box as well. Spin. Okay, so internal server error. Okay, await is only allowed in. So we are using await over here, so we need to make this function async. Oh, we got it. The hello world coming from the server. So our GraphQL connection and all these things are working fine. So you can see hello lolly coming from the server. So our GraphQL connection is working. We have implemented the mutation. Now we need to call that mutation from the client so that we can submit data to the server, and then server can send that data into the database. So for that, what we need to do is on the client, we need to create mutation query. Okay, let's I was about to create the problem same as last week. Okay, now we need mutation. And here we need to pass the parameters. So instead of passing all those individually, I'll copy from here and just pass the dollar. Okay, now inside this, we need to call create function, actual function. And again, we need to provide, but we need to use it a different way. So these are too many, so I prefer to copy paste and manipulate. Okay. Okay. So once we call the query, the properties need to understand the property values or properties should be the arguments from the client. So we need to create in a way that this dollar we are creating a variable and its type of a string, and then inside this create lolly we are saying that that will be the variable and will this parameter will pass over here. So that's how we create the mutation. And as on the server we have mentioned that it will return the complete lolly. So we need to specify how many properties or what properties we need to use. So at this moment I'm just using message, so it's assuming that I'm receiving the message back from the end path from the server. We can use all these properties, just copy this from here, but I just don't want to use them. So that's how we created the mutation. Now what we need to do is we need to forget about this query because it's not required now. And what we do is we call the name is to use mutation. And inside that we'll pass this query. So it will generate this function create lolly, and then we'll call this create lolly function from here. Create lolly, and then we'll provide our parameter inside that. So to provide, there's a specific syntax to call mutations from the client variable, and inside this variable now we need to provide all these properties individually. So you need to be clear that what you are expecting. So recipient name, message, sender name, flavor top, flavor middle, and flavor bottom. Okay, so for recipient name, we'll receive this information from recipient name.ref current.value. For message, again, we'll receive this information from message ref dot current dot value. For sender, we'll receive this. Okay. For color, we have this color 1, 2, and 3 properties from use state. So we'll just provide over here directly color 1. It was a mistake to name it color 1, 2, and 3. It should be same top, middle, and bottom. But never mind, because naming a variable properly, it's also a time-taking task. Okay, so once you call this create lolly and pass this variable, it will go to the server, and this create lolly is in what you say is a promise function. So I'll call the result over there and call it as an await. Once it's submit to the server, so it will return something, and we'll use that return value over here. Okay. Now, assuming once we'll submit this data, it will go to the server smoothly, assuming, and it receive this mutation and will this will call over here. So for just for the to see if it's we are receiving data properly, I'm commenting out, and I'll see that if we have everything we want in the args property. You will not have a result. Just for the testing purpose, so that once client submit data, and we'll see if it's working fine. Okay, we have error await is not allowed in. That's the common mistake I do too much. Await should be inside async function. Okay. Now we need to just to so that we know that color has been changed, and to So console, clear everything out. Seems like success, and that's interesting. No, it should not be. So there is an error. Let's see, but let's see first on the server. So yes, we have all the data from the client, so we can safely save the data into the database. So let's uncomment the code for the server database connection, and instead of dummy, we'll send result.data. Client is not a constructor. Click sender, and we have a result from the server. It has early path and message. Okay, it works fine. There are some good days when your
Lucky.
implementation works quite smooth sometimes. Okay, so here you can see inside the FaunaDB, we have all this information: recipient name, message, sender, flavor top, and the lolly path as well. So this information, so as we have submit the data from the client, from here we submit this data. It went all through clients, what you say, on the create new. When we submit the data, it calls this create lolly, and this create lolly is being created with this mutation, and this mutation create lolly, this mutation we have created, which exists on the server. So it reach over here and it connect to the database, generate the short ID, and save data inside the FaunaDB, and that's what you can see the result here. Now what we can do is we can create a page to navigate, so that once we have the result, what we can do is we can navigate to the show lolly page, as you can see over here in this example.
I think Zeeshan, this is good enough. Otherwise,
Good
what will the students do?
Okay.
You do just
But
yeah, go ahead.
I need to add a few things that on the face of it, this example, this project is quite easy, but it is not. It requires these CSS things, as well as if you are working with the GraphQL, so it will require all the GraphQL things. And the most importantly, you need to know some few more things that Gatsby GraphQL source. This plugin. So as we have created our own GraphQL server, so our Lambda function is a GraphQL, as you guys remember, when we were connecting with the Contentful server, so we have imported the plugin Gatsby source Contentful, so that our static pages at the build time, our pages connect to the Contentful with the GraphQL. When we want to build our server, so the next step for this is to show lolly, and then to build static pages for all the lollies, so that it does not require to fetch data or at the runtime. So we need to build this project as we were discussing the e-commerce. So assuming that someone added the product, and then product needs to be created as a static page, so that it does not hit the database again and again. So for that, what you need to do is you need to use Gatsby source GraphQL plugin, and at the build time, you will be connecting your server client at the build time in the Node.js, Gatsby Node.js file. Using this plugin, you will contact to the server, Lambda server, which will return you all the lollies, and you will create the static pages. So for that, you need Gatsby source GraphQL. And another important thing is once you enter the data in the database, for the contentful, we have a integration that you provide the hook. So any changes in the contentful hit calls for the Netlify build. So in this case, what you can do is once you save the data in the database here, once we save the data in the database, from here we can hit the HTTP request to the Netlify hook. So that will start the building process. So we can customize it. So this project will gives you the complete flavor of how you build the Jamstack dynamic application. So that's what I wanted to add.
Zeeshan, you did have done a marvelous job, extremely detailed, and the good thing is that it is on video, and for the next few years, because in technology we can't predict after few years, but then for the next 2-3 years, it will be a tremendous resource for all the students. All the students are requested to submit the assignments, the 12 assignments. Your first target should be to complete these 12 assignments, these 12 projects, which have some of them have parts also, but it's all of it is documented. Zeeshan, could you push the code so that we have the URL also on video?
Yeah, just doing that.
So therefore, there's no specific date. Every student should try their best. They are not competing with anybody else. Everybody is competing. For example, if I try to compete with Zeeshan, Daniyal, and Adil, I will always lose. So therefore, what I do is I never try to compete with people who are smarter than me. What I try to do is I compete with myself. And the other bad thing is that if you're competing with people who are extremely either have a lot more experience than you or much smarter than you, you get depressed. But if you are only pushing yourself, therefore this is for all students and all participants of this bootcamp, no matter whoever they may be, that never compare yourself with anybody else. Just do your best and try to do as much as possible and as best as you can. And you do these projects, 12 projects, as soon as possible. You are not worried. Of course, Zeeshan has a lot of experience, Daniyal has a lot of experience, and they're much smarter than us. But in our own way, we will bring something else to the table. Even if we are not that smart, we can bring in, for example, as you can see, Zeeshan and Daniyal both have problems in doing CSS. Maybe we can help them in doing CSS. Actually, some people think CSS is easy. It's not that easy. Unless you have a lot of practice, it's not that easy. And
Yes.
The problem with us developers is that we don't take it seriously. Even front-end developers, because now front-end development has become so huge and also a lot of things. From next class, we are going to start e-commerce, and we are going to, because why are we going to start e-commerce? Because we believe that after this COVID-19 thing, that the growth of e-commerce has tremendously accelerated, and there's a lot of investment coming in. The issue we are going to face is that we are going to have to cover, Daniyal, both international payment systems and domestic local payment systems. That's going to be a little tough, but we'll try our best. Therefore, we never worry about what will be the result. For the next month, most probably we will be doing e-commerce. The first thing is, if I have not finalized it yet, but the first thing is going to be Zeeshan and Daniyal are going to show you how to accept payments using Stripe. But we will finalize the stuff in the next day or two, and by the next class, when it starts, you will know exactly what we are going to do. Zeeshan, could you also send me in our teacher group, WhatsApp group, just copy the URL so that our Urdu group also has the other group also has the. I'm talking about the teacher group, not in this comments.
On the WhatsApp.
Okay. Yes. See you guys. It was very enjoyable. Now, if you do these 12 projects, you become full stack developers.
Yes.
And the thing is, previously, if you were a full stack, if you were a full stack developer, it didn't mean anything because your apps you built were not very scalable. Now with serverless, you can build unlimited scalable apps which can be used, and your company can immediately deploy in the international market and start getting feedback from customers. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. See you.
Okay.
See you in the next class.
Bye.
Bye bye.